Hi, everybody. I'm Kerry Diamond, and you're listening to Radio Cherry Bombe. We're taking a little break today, so we're sharing one of our favorite episodes from the vault. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week. Today's guest is Ina Garten. I'm sure you all know the Barefoot Contessa and love her, like the whole team at Cherry Bombe does. I am so excited to welcome Ina back to our podcast. She joins me in just a minute, and we talk about her highly anticipated memoir, Be Ready When the Luck Happens. Speaking of luck, I was able to read an advance copy, and I couldn't put it down. Be Ready When the Luck Happens will no doubt be a huge bestseller. Stay tuned for my chat with Ina Garten. There's a lot going on at Cherry Bombe right now. We're working on Jubilee, our big annual conference that's taking place at the Glass House in Manhattan on April 25th. It's a beautiful day of connection, community, and great food and drink, and we would love to see you there. Tickets are on sale right now at cherrybombe.com. Now, let's check in with today's guest. Ina, welcome back to Radio Cherry Bombe.
Thank you.
I have to tell you, I love the book so much. I cried. I have laughed out loud so many times.
I'm so glad. Thank you. I didn't want it to be, I went here, I did that, I said this. I wanted it to be fun to read, and I wanted the stories to be fun, but I wanted them to have a point. I learned something, and I hope it's interesting to you.
Well, I think that comes through loud and clear. I want to ask you first, though, why did you want to write a memoir?
Well, I didn't. I have a very good friend, Deborah Davis, who was my writing partner on this, who had written her own wonderful books like Madam X and The Party of the Century about Truman Capote's
The Black and White Ball, yeah.
But she also has written quite a few memoirs, including Oprah's and Tina Turner's. She'd been talking to me for about a year about doing it. And I kept saying, oh, my life's not that interesting. I mean, who would care? And she said, finally, after a year of conversations, at least, she said, somebody's going to write your memoir, and it should be you. And I went, whoa, okay. So the deal we made is that we would do it together. She would help me with a lot of the research and the writing, but I was integrally involved in every detail. And that if at any point I thought it wasn't interesting enough, I could pull the plug. And she's a very good friend anyway, so I really trusted her. And halfway through, she was like a therapist. She found people I went to high school with, I haven't spoken to in, I hate to say this, 60 years. I found the process really interesting. I'm so glad I did it.
Did you learn anything about yourself that you didn't realize?
So much. I had no idea. I really thought of myself, I wrote about this in the back epilogue of the book. I really thought of myself as being unbelievably lucky. I mean, I had a really tough childhood. Other people have had worse childhoods, but I had a tough childhood. And I was really lucky that I met Jeffrey, who totally believed in me, which gave me some confidence to overcome that. But I felt that along the way, when I decided to write cookbooks, or when I started a specialty food store, that was really the beginning of specialty food stores in America. And that the timing was just perfect. And then when I started writing cookbooks, people went from having like The Joy of Cooking and Julia Childs and maybe one other book to having like whole bookshelves filled with cookbooks. So the timing was really perfect. And then when I started doing TV, it was when Food Network went from being chefs with their white toques on to being good home cooks. So I felt like I was lucky. But then in the process of writing the book, and Deborah took me back to my days in Washington, I came to realize, wow, I taught myself how to cook when I was there. And I bought old houses and I renovated them. I went to the bank for loans. I learned about renovations and business, and I went to business school at night. And I look back and I think, how did I have a job in the White House and do all of that at the same time? But I didn't really think of that as work. I thought it was what I did for fun.
One of the things you point out in the book is that you were very much, especially at a younger age, all about leap before you look.
Yeah, I kind of still am.
So there is a luck element with those things.
Well, it is luck, but I realized that I actually had done the work. Every single day I came home and made something from Julia Childs. Her books are really an education because she doesn't just tell you, make the hollandaise. She tells you why it works. If it goes wrong, to do this. She makes you understand the process. So I found that just an incredible education. I love renovating old buildings, old houses mostly, and negotiating deals with buyers and sellers. And I just found that really fun. All of that gave me the knowledge that I needed to later run a specialty food store.
You also credit Oprah in the book with a little bit of the realization that it was more than luck. Can you tell us about the time Oprah slapped you on the arm and what happened there?
It was shocking. It was very nice. I was given a Matrix Award for Women in Media, and there were probably, I'm thinking, 8 women on the stage, and each of them had somebody that introduced them. I had Anna Quinlan, who I just adore, introducing me, but I was sitting next to Oprah on the stage, and she was introducing Gayle King, who was being given an award. And you were asked to give literally a minute and 30-second speech, which is about all I can handle without having a total meltdown. And I basically said I'd been really lucky in my life. And I sat down and she smacked me on the arm in front of like 2,000 people and said, "You make your own luck." And I said, "Well, I actually had been incredibly lucky." And then she smacked me again. And I was like, okay. Many years later, when I was writing this memoir, I thought she was kind of right that I had done the work. So when I did the thing, running a specialty food store was the basis for writing a cookbook. I had actually really done the work. And so I have to give her credit. She was right.
So was that the Be Ready part of the title of the book?
No, what this was is I didn't know what it was while I was writing it. I didn't know what I was going to call it. And very good friends of mine are Rob Marshall and John DeLuca, who were the director and producers of huge movies like Chicago and Mary Poppins Returns. And just fabulous movies. And we were having dinner one night, and Rob just happened to mention that when he was 24 and he was the dance captain for a Broadway show with Liza Minnelli, Liza came over to him and said, and it's a paraphrase of what she said, "Be ready when the luck happens." It just gave me chills because I thought, oh my God, that's the connection. It's not a new idea. It's, it's from the Greeks or something. It's preparation and inspiration. And I thought, well, actually, I had kind of been ready when the luck happened. And so it wasn't just lucky. At the end, I gave her full credit for the statement. When I see young people now, they just want to be rich and famous, but they don't understand that you have to do the work. You have to understand what you're doing. And you have to just dive in, not knowing where it's going to go. I mean, we grew up long before you thinking, not as women, but certainly the boys I grew up with, what are you going to be when you grow up? The thing is, you don't decide that now. You decide what you're going to do now, and it's going to lead to something else, and you leave yourself open, and you figure it out along the way. And I think that's the fun of it. Not like I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and that's all I'm ever going to think about doing.
You mentioned people asking what you wanted to be when you grow up. I was really struck by how few expectations there were for you, Ina. It was be a wife.
You were going to get married, and that was that. And the rest was prescribed. And I actually never thought about anything else. And it was Jeffrey, who I'm sure I've told you this, that I consider him the first feminist I met. And he came home one day. I was watching TV at 11 o'clock in the morning. And ironically, I was watching That Girl with Marlo Thomas. And it was so dramatic and so out of the box that she was a young woman living on her own in New York City in an apartment without a chaperone. This isn't 1,000 years ago. This was, 60 years ago. And her boyfriend was coming to visit. That was even scandalous. And Jeffrey said, you need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. If you don't, you won't be happy. And it had never occurred to me.
It took you a while to get there.
Well, first I had to finish college.
Yeah. Didn't you have to do 3 different colleges just to finish?
Yeah, 3 different colleges, because I got married in the middle of my college when I was a junior. When my parents put so much pressure on me about grades in college and being academically successful, I really pushed back. Jeffrey said, I said to him, I can't figure out my grades. I just can't do this. He said, so don't go to college. And in that moment, I remember thinking, oh, it's up to me. And after that, it was easy. I don't like having somebody tell me what to do.
Well, that's why I had to laugh when I asked about the memoir. And you said your writer and friend sort of talked you into it in the beginning, because one thing definitely comes through in the book. You don't do things unless you want to do things.
That comes through loud and clear.
Just a little.
But Jeffrey's got my number. If he wants me to do something, he always somehow says, whatever you do, don't do it. And the next thing I know, I'm doing it.
That's the secret. Okay, good to know. I'm also curious with the memoir. You've always been a fairly private person. A lot of us think we know you because of the TV shows and the books, but we only know a little bit of you. Were you worried about letting people know more about your life or the real Ina?
I thought it was interesting because, in the social media world, everybody has a very thin view of everything, that these people are perfect and they have perfect lives and everything's beautiful all the time. And that's not the way life is. I think that when I look back, it's the times of stress, like when Jeffrey and I were having issues and we just didn't know what to do. And I decided to put on the brakes. Those are the really meaningful times in the long run, because that's where we shifted our relationship. It was really hard. It was really scary because he could have walked out. Thank God he stuck around for it and was willing to just sit down and say, okay, what are we going to do? That really made my life. I mean, jumping off a cliff from the White House to buying a specialty food store in a place I'd never been. If I hadn't had the courage to do that, I'd still be working in Washington. I'd have a perfectly fine life, but it wouldn't be what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. So I think people needed to know that. I just think it was important to share that it's the scary things that you do that really are the doing of your life or the making of your life. And I'm not saying for people to do things that are so scary. I always had an exit strategy. I knew if it didn't work out, I could do something. I wouldn't destroy myself or Jeffrey, but you got to take a chance. You can't stand on the side of the pond thinking, oh, it could be cold, it's wet, it's dark, I don't know what it is. You have to just jump in the pond, splash around, and find out what it was and find out what it is. And at some point you may say, well, this is interesting, but I see something over there that's even more interesting. And you go there. You just got to be a little more flexible.
The media has really jumped on the fact that you and Jeffrey separated for a short time. Were you surprised about that?
No.
You knew that would be the thing people talk about.
I think people would be surprised. And I think that was part of why I told the story. Mm-hmm. It was a really long time ago. It was a really scary thing, but I wasn't happy. And I felt that our relationship was like husband and wife, which relationships in the 70s were. And I couldn't shift that. It was assumed that I would make dinner, that I'd take care of the house. And maybe I'm happy doing it, but I don't like that it's expected. And that Jeffrey was the husband and he would take care of the finances. And he would say to me like, so what's this bill from Bloomingdale's? And I'm like, I'm not justifying this. And at some point, Jeffrey just said, here, you do it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So we needed to shift it from husband and wife to partners. It was a time when women were having a hard time doing that. Of course, men had a good deal. You know, they always came home and there was a good meal on the table for dinner.
You also clarify why you and Jeffrey didn't have any children. And I was curious why you included that. Were you tired of that question?
No, I wasn't tired of the question. Very few people have asked me, actually. The reason why I included the story of my childhood, which was so unhappy and so fraught, is not that I thought it was the worst childhood ever. I mean, certainly it was bad, but it was not as bad as a lot of other people. Is that I just wanted people to know that the story of your childhood doesn't have to be the story of your life. And I made an absolute determination when I was 15 that if I was dating somebody who someone just raised his voice to me, I was out of there. I think a lot of people make that decision, but end up marrying somebody that's like their family. I married somebody who's totally different. And at every step of the way, I've really rejected the relationships I had at home and created different relationships. And I think part of not having children was I had a very unhappy childhood. Being a child in that family was terrible. There was no joy. There was no fun. Nobody hung out and played games and nobody cared about what we thought. And I didn't really understand in my 20s why people even had children because it was such a miserable experience. Now that I'm older, I understand people have wonderful family lives and they have total joy from their children, but I hadn't seen it.
One of the things that I always marvel about you, Ina, is just how prescient you are. You know, you mentioned earlier some of the things like getting into the food business, getting on television, writing cookbooks. Even during the pandemic, 2 years earlier, I started working on a book called Modern Comfort Food, the book we all needed when you did the fun cocktail thing and made us all smile during the pandemic. Just so many examples of that over and over again. But in talking about not having children, of course, you know, I have to ask you about the term childless being weaponized and thrown around in a way that's just really ugly toward women, I think. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But I was just curious if you had any reaction to that when it happened.
Technically, it's not an ugly word. It's being used as an ugly word. It's being used in a way that says if women don't have children, they have no value. It's that simple. And they have no value to society. They have no value to other people. It's obviously ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. You are definitely not a cat lady, though.
It's funny. I said to somebody, I'm not just childless. I don't even have a cat. So I'm the worst kind of childless cat lady.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Have you guys ever had pets?
Our lives are so simple. We do what we love to do. We spend a lot of wonderful time together, and we're not responsible to anything except each other and the people that work with us and our friends. The things that people fight about, we don't even have.
Maybe it's the Hamptons thing and the fact that you like a convertible, but I see you two as like golden retriever people.
No, there's fur all over everything.
And muddy paw prints, right?
And muddy paw prints. I know people love their pets. I know they love their children, and I admire that. I don't have it in me.
Again, this is clear just from our interview, but very clear in the book that you do operate on instinct often and trusting your gut, and you react when an opportunity is presented to you. Has there ever been a time when you've said, I'm going to work on a 5-year plan, or I'm going to set some goals for the year?
I just don't.
Yeah.
I never have, and what's happened to me has been so outrageously outside the bounds of what I could have imagined that to set a 5-year goal just seems like a waste of time, because I think it locks something in, as opposed to saying, I literally just operate as I don't go to sleep until I know what I'm going to do tomorrow. And I've got all, my pencils or my ingredients or whatever I need lined up. And tomorrow I'm going to do the best job I can possibly do with what I have to do. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do the next day. And it just seems to me, for me, it works the best. If something comes across my screen, I'm free to look at it and say, that's interesting. Or no, I'm not going to put my name on your fertilizer, which is an opportunity that I was presented with. And I was like, no, I'm not putting my name on your shit. And then something comes across and somebody says, would you like to do a show on Food Network? And you go, well, that's kind of interesting, but I don't think I will, but maybe I'll just dip my toe in that water and see what it's like.
I get the sense you run your business still as a family business. Do you have a CEO or anybody who runs the business for you?
I'm the CEO, I'm the CFO. And actually, when I hire people to come work with me, they think I have a big organization. One of my employees said, a friend of hers who worked for Wolfgang Puck said, have you ever met Ina? Because she had never met Wolfgang. I mean, it's a huge organization. She had never met Wolfgang. And literally every morning I walk from the house across the lawn to the barn, and I have 2 assistants, full-time assistants, and 1 part-time accountant. And we meet at the barn and we decide what we're going to do that day. And that's basically the organization. And it's great because if I have a question about something, we bat it around until we decide what to do. I love to hear people's opinions, but it's my responsibility to make the decision.
So you've written the memoir. Does that mean no more cookbooks, or will you go back to cookbooks?
I am probably 3/4 of the way through the next cookbook. Yeah, I'm definitely going back to cookbooks. Sense now, but as I said to you, it could change, is I have a contract for a cookbook, which is next. That'll come out in 2026, and a design book in 2028. And it's not a pretty pictures design book for your coffee table. It's going to be, this is how I think about flowers on a table for a dinner party. This is how I think about arranging the chairs in a room where the sofa goes. It's about gardens. It'll be about all the things that I kind of do for fun.
Oh, I love that. Do you think you'll be back on that every 2-year schedule that you were on?
2 years just feels like I have the time to really delve into it and it's not a surface job, really spend time doing a good job and designing it and editing it and photographing it. That feels like it's a lot every 2 years.
Absolutely. But I do think for some of us who are big fans and who love your books, it also gives some sort of, structure to our own lives. Like, okay, 2 years have passed. Ina's got a new book. What's going on?
I also feel like I want people to absorb what I've gotten this year. And it takes a year or 2 to work on the recipes and feel like I want people to look around and go, oh, is there another book coming soon? Rather than, oh, God, it's another book.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did you let Jeffrey read the memoir before you turned it in?
I wrote the entire memoir. Deborah and I wrote it together. And I wanted him to read it. I gave it to him actually like 24 hours before I was giving it to my editor. I knew we had an editing process. I wanted him to read it for accuracy because unlike an autobiography where everything has to be very accurate. A memoir is how you remember it. And I just wanted to be sure that there was nothing in it that was upsetting to him, because of course a lot of it's about him, but also that what I said was accurate. And I gave it to him. I mean, he reads a lot, but he's also dyslexic. So it takes an enormous amount of energy for Jeffrey to read. And he usually reads in blocks. And so I gave it to him after lunch one day, and he sat at the kitchen table and he didn't move until 7:30 when he finished it. And I was like bringing him snacks and drinks. And I was like, oh my God. And of course he knew everything in the book, but he'd never read it in the way that we wrote it. And I was really glad that he was pleased.
He had no changes.
One change, a friend of his who had an enormous influence on me, I thought had worked at the State Department. He worked at the World Bank, but that was it.
And that was it. Wow. Were you nervous? I mean, you two know each other so well.
Yeah. Of course I was nervous because, I want him to admire my work, and he thought it was just wonderful. Oh. So that was good. It was a moment.
That's amazing. I think you mentioned in the book that Jeffrey is very private and has never really done many interviews.
He's had so many requests for interviews because of the memoir, and he's just said no to all of them.
Oh, okay. So we shouldn't request to get him on Radio Cherry Bombe.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Jeffrey, if you're listening, we all want you to come on the show. So he's at the top of my list with Oprah.
Thank you.
Tell him friendly territory if he comes here. Does Jeffrey cook?
Jeffrey makes really good coffee, and which is wonderful because I come downstairs in the morning and his coffee ready for me. And during the pandemic, because I was working so hard, I was doing recipes for people that were, stuck at home out of their pantry. They didn't know what to do. And then I'd have to make lunch and dinner because you couldn't order out. I was just exhausted. And Jeffrey said, you know what, why don't I just take over doing the dishes? I was like, that would be great. So even after that, he's taken that over. So he's been wonderful doing dishes and loading and unloading the dishwasher.
Oh, that's nice. And he doesn't break the dishes?
No.
I've had some passive-aggressive boyfriends who are like, I'll do the dishes, and then they break the first two. And you're like, you know what? Let me do the dishes.
Well, I know. That's very passive-aggressive. No, he knows I hate a scavenger hunt for the spatula I'm looking for. So if he's not sure, he leaves it on the counter and I put it away in the morning. So we have a nice list.
I love talking about it as a scavenger hunt. That's exactly what happens. You've done so many things now. I mean, the memoir, kind of the cherry on top. What is left on your big to-do list?
I don't have a list of things that I'm dying to do. I love my life the way it is. I love writing books. I'm never retiring because I can't imagine what I would do with myself. And I like the challenges. I can always challenge myself. I think I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, which is writing books. I like that I've opened it up a little bit with the memoir and the design book. And Be My Guest has been just stunningly wonderful for me to connect with people. It's the kind of the thing I missed in my childhood, having a connection with people and cooking together and meeting people that I wouldn't ever have met and very often becoming friends with them, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's so clear how much you love doing that show. And it's a show and a podcast for people who don't realize that. Yeah,
it's been extraordinary.
Yeah.
Really extraordinary.
How do you stay inspired?
I think traveling and reading, and I have a library behind me that has 1 million cookbooks in it. I think it's probably like for doctors, it's like medical journals. You just enjoy reading them. When you travel, you see things that have nothing to do with cookbooks, but I may see the colors of fashion in Paris and think, oh, those would be great for the cover of a book. So I think when you travel, you see what other people are doing and you use what you've learned in a way that works for you. Mm-hmm. And it's osmosis. You just absorb it.
I have a few questions from the Bomb Squad. We got a great one from a 16-year-old named Summer. She would like to know what your life advice is for a 16-year-old who wants to do everything.
The best advice I ever gave, and I'll pass it on to you, is do what you love. If you love it, you'll be really good at it. So think about what you used to do when you were 10 before you had this idea that you had to be something when you grow up, and figure out how to make a living out of it. I mean, I know somebody who loved to watch movies. And I mean, how do you make a living watching movies? And she became the movie critic for a newspaper. So there's always a way to incorporate what you love to do.
Projet Chocolat wants to know, what's been your life's purpose?
Well, a friend of mine actually writes books about mattering. And mattering is when we feel that our lives matter to other people. And I didn't do this deliberately, but it's the way it worked out. When I walk down the street and people say to me, you taught me how to cook, I feel like my life matters. When you cook, everybody shows up and you create a community around yourselves and connections with people. And that's really what makes us happy. And I think the people who feel that their lives matter to other people, and it could be just like showing up at somebody's house with chicken soup when they're not well. You say to them, your life matters to me and I want to take care of you. So I think cooking really satisfies that for me. And I did it because I felt like writing cookbooks, but it turned out that it made me feel like my life matters.
There's a great new culinary bookstore in Buffalo called Read It and Eat. And the folks there would like to know, which of your recipes has most stood the test of time? You do have some recipes in this book.
I do. If I'm telling a story that involves a recipe, like a story about Nora Ephron, I included the truffle sandwich that she and I connected over. I hate to say it because it's kind of cliche by now, but I mean, roast chicken. Most people don't know how to make a really good roast chicken, and it's really simple. You just don't overcook it. There's really not much of a secret to it. I think one of the very few things I took from my mother was she used to make Parmesan chicken, and I ended up putting a salad with a lemon vinaigrette on top of it. Those are two things that I make all the time. My other current favorite is vanilla panna cotta with salted caramel, which I just love whenever I serve it. I just look around the table and nobody's talking. Everybody's just like,
I love that.
That just makes me feel so good that people are so happy.
Sure. I thought you might say coconut cupcakes.
Oh, coconut cupcakes, definitely. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, my little Pasadena kitchen wants to know if you get invited to potlucks.
We don't do potlucks so much, but I think it's a good idea. As long as it's organized. You don't want a potluck where everybody brings a green bean casserole. You know what I like about potlucks is that everybody feels like they're involved. And if you ask somebody to bring something, it says, I trust you to bring something really good. So you're part of the team. But I have to say, I usually ask people to just come and bring their adorable selves and have fun.
All right. We all know you love gardening and you love your garden. Kim Friday is a first-time gardener, and she wants to know, are there any herb plants that you bring in for the winter?
Well, you can bring them all in. The only question is, will they last? I think sometimes they get a little mold on them. They're really hard to do, but it's certainly worth doing. I don't know that you can expect to put them out again next year. But, one herb plant, like one basil plant, makes a lot of basil. And sometimes I have rosemary that overwinters for a couple of winters, and then I have to buy new ones. As long as you're willing to just say, okay, this isn't working, and buy a new one, it's certainly worth keeping them for as long as you can.
For everyone else who sent in questions, thank you so much. If I didn't ask your question, it means Ina answers it in the book, and you have to buy the book and read the book. Ina, you know what we didn't talk about that I just loved was the early Barefoot Contessa days. I shook my head as many times as I laughed out loud.
Really?
And again, just this like plunging forward, not knowing what you don't know.
I mean, taking we didn't have time to count the cash. So we used to stuff it into night drop bags for the bank, but we kept both keys so they couldn't get into the bag. As soon as we had money, we would put it into the night drop. And then on Monday, my manager, Sarah, and I would go to one of those little booths where the safety deposit box are, and we would spend the entire day counting cash.
That's called a good problem.
We knew that maybe this was going to be a good business.
I mean, really fun stuff. Lots of hijinks, everything from like people stealing from the store. You got held up by gunpoint in the city. I mean, this is like a movie.
It was pretty crazy. I just did what I needed to do. And maybe because I'd never been in the business before, I just went headlong into it, as you say, and just figured it out on the way.
1,000 baguettes that you would have to make every day.
I had a baker who was, we were only open in the summer, so I'd hire an entire staff in April, and then they would be gone in September. So in April, I hired this young man. He was a perfectly lovely young man. His family were bread bakers. And he was going to be the bread baker because I had just gotten these French deck ovens. And he just made terrible bread. I think he knew how to make like classic American white bread, but not baguettes. And I get there at 3 a.m, try and, get him to, and I just couldn't. And in walks this absolutely gorgeous Swedish girl. And I just said, have you ever baked bread? And she said, no. And I was like, would you like to learn? She said, yes. And I taught her how to make bread, and she was in the window the bread baking was in the window so you could watch it. I mean, like people from all over the country, it felt like, came to watch her bake bread because she was so beautiful. And she made fabulous baguettes. And she stayed for years. And we would literally sell 1,000 baguettes a day when she was there. Isn't that incredible?
That is amazing. But even her story, a case of like right time, right place, saying yes.
Saying yes.
To an opportunity.
I thought, okay, here's a bread baker who thinks he knows how to bake bread and I can't change him. I'll just try somebody who I know how to bake bread, so I'll just teach her how to do it. Yeah. And she was just fabulous.
So folks might not be looking at this book as sort of like an entrepreneur manual. And so many of you out there are entrepreneurs. There is a lot of great advice for starting a business and just succeeding despite just so much craziness around you.
Thank you so much, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you for sharing
that's exactly what I wanted people to get from it is sometimes you don't have to go to business school to figure it out. You have to jump in and figure it out and use your common sense and do what do what feels right.
All right, let's do a little speed round because you are busy and we're so grateful that you gave us the time, Ina. Thank you so much.
I love what you do and I'm so glad to be part of it.
Oh, I know the whole world wants to interview you, so it means a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, speed round. Morning beverage.
Coffee. Good coffee.
Yeah. Good coffee.
With milk. That's a really good coffee with whole milk.
What are you streaming these days?
We're always watching some kind of a British series. We love British series. We're watching a series called River. I think it's an old series, but I love the British series because they're human. They're all about human beings with quirks and flaws and anxieties, and they're trying to solve a crime. So they're great.
Are there any treasured cookbooks that you're referencing these days or taking a look at?
I tend to look at especially food store cookbooks because they're things where food that's made in advance that you take home to reheat and they're still really good, as opposed to a restaurant where you grill a steak and serve it and somebody eats it. So I find them very useful. I love Loaves and Fishes cookbooks. I love...
And that's a whole series of cookbooks.
Whole series. Mm-hmm. And Sarah Chase, who had a specialty food store, Kay Sarah, who actually works with me, fabulous cookbooks, and I love her. She actually wrote the second Silver Palette cookbook. She knows about simple recipes that taste fabulous.
I was thinking of doing a fun social media thing and cooking through the Silver Palette cookbook.
Oh, yeah. And remember, they didn't have photographs. They had drawings. And sometimes there are like 3 recipes on one page. So, I mean, that's just fabulous.
Yeah, that book is a triumph of graphic design. That is for sure.
Yeah.
How they squeezed all those recipes in. What's your favorite smell?
Vanilla.
Oh. What's your favorite snack food?
Cheese.
Any particular kind?
Whatever's in season. I like sharp cheddar. I like really good brie, just stuff. And obviously in season, Vacherin.
Your friend Oprah said recently, don't take my Tupperware. Do you feel the same way about your own Tupperware?
I don't even own Tupperware.
I think she was using
my Tupperware.
I think she was using it in the generic sense, like don't take my nice, containers.
Oh, I have like quart containers and pint containers and mini pints. Oh yeah, absolutely. They're all stacked together. I use them all the time.
Are you proprietary about them?
No, because if we're cooking something and my chef wants to take something, then it goes into one of those containers. But, at some point I just say, can you bring some of those back?
Exactly.
Or I take them from here to the house and I have to bring them back. Yeah.
I know. Who do you admire?
Julia Child. Let's think about Julia Child. She had a passion for food. Cookbooks weren't a thing. She proposed in an era where people were looking for fast food and quick tricks like Velveeta. She was proposing we go back to real food and complicated cooking. Alfred Knopf famously said, if we sell any of these books, I'll eat my hat. And she did it anyway. She was not going to let somebody stop her. She wrote the book because of her passion for it and her belief that people would enjoy cooking if they took the chance. We're still using that book today. Then she went into TV. Nobody who would want to watch cooking on TV. Cooking was beneath people. And she made it something really worthwhile. I don't think there's anybody I have more admiration for than Julia.
All right, last question. And you can't say Jeffrey, even though Jeffrey is kind of a food celebrity these days. If you had to be trapped on a deserted island with one food celebrity, who would it be and why?
Eric Ripert. Obviously, probably the most accomplished chef in the world, the co-owner and chef at Le Bernardin. He's fun. He's adorable. He's a Buddhist. I think I would learn a lot from him if I was trapped on a desert island, and I think we'd have a very good time. But don't tell his wife. She can come. Sandra can come too. She's wonderful.
I thought maybe you picked him because chances are you'd be surrounded by water and his specialty is fish.
Yeah, fish. It would be perfect.
You'd never starve. Yeah.
We'd never starve.
Did you know you are our number one answer to that question?
I'm your number one answer?
Yes.
You're kidding. Oh, that's just wonderful.
I think 90% of our guests say Ina Garten.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you. And I picked Eric Repair for the same reason, because I thought it'd be fun and we would eat well.
Would you be good on a deserted island? Should people be picking you?
Well, how big's the deserted island? I get claustrophobia pretty quickly. I'd probably be building a boat really fast. As long as I had funsters around me, I'd be okay. But I think alone on an island, that's not pretty. I'd be in a rabbit hole so deep you wouldn't be able to find me.
Did you say funsters?
Funsters, yeah.
Okay. Well, make sure you're surrounded by funsters. Thank you again, Ina.
Thank you. It's wonderful being with you. Anytime, anywhere. See you soon.
That's it for today's show. Don't forget, tickets for Jubilee 2026 are on sale right now at cherrybombe.com. Our next Jubilee conference is taking place on Saturday, April 25th, here in New York City. Our theme song is by the band Cha La La. Joseph Hazen is a studio engineer for Newsstand Studios. Our producers are Catherine Baker and Jenna Sadu. Our executive assistant is Bridget Pittman. And our head of partnerships is Rachel Close. Thanks for listening, everybody. You're the bomb.